Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Office Hours. I am Jeff Blankenberg, and I'm here with Ryan Lowe today. Ryan, thanks for joining me, man. Oh, you are muted.
That's embarrassing.
That's embarrassing.
I apologize for that.
It's amateur.
That's terrible.
Hour. Unacceptable.
Oh my gosh. I'll see you next week.
All right. We'll just knock Ryan off. Welcome everybody.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
As we do every week, except for somehow last week, we had some miscommunications. We are here to answer your questions about Alexa development and voice design, ambient computing, you name it. We've got a few people already in the chat. Gavin Watson, Matthew Harmon, thank you for being here. TradeLast is here. Welcome, TradeLast. And Habuma1 is here. Welcome, everybody. We've got folks from Twitch and YouTube and Facebook.
Nice.
And actually, I've got two things to chat about here this morning, Ryan. It's a busy day. The first is, I think this is our first office hours where we're now also broadcasting on Twitter. So if you want to tune in and watch office hours on Twitter, you can do that. Our handle is @alexa.devs, and you can find that by just going to our profile. So if you prefer to watch,
pretty cool.
You can do that now. That's one. The other one is a little bit cooler. And so just to be clear, we're on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and LinkedIn. So you should be able to find us wherever you're looking. But the other one is related to an event that's coming up. I actually got selected to speak and give the keynote, actually, which is incredibly flattering, at an event called Project Voice X. Now, if you guys don't know about this event, or you haven't heard about Project Voice before, this is one of the premier kind of voice-focused, voice-centric conferences in the country. And they generally hold one earlier in the summer. I want to say June timeframe. But this Project Voice X is meant to be a little bit different. And so actually I have a URL for all of you. If you want to check it out, it's Project Voice X. And so I created this alexa.design/Project Voice X. Will take you right exactly to the page because their website has a bunch of other stuff on it too. So I thought that would be the easiest way to get where you're going. But there's a bunch of really interesting, good content there. And it's not just related to Alexa. I mean, we're talking about the broad world of voice. So there are people there talking about voiceover and synthesized voices and all sorts of other technology related to the world of voice, right? Things that you may or may not use with Alexa, but that are really involved in the idea of creating voice and voice communications. So I'm going to be giving the keynote there on the 25th of October. I think that's in 2 weeks from yesterday. And I'm really looking forward to it. It should be a lot of fun. It's down in Destin, Florida. So if you're looking for a quick little beach trip, that might be just the one for you. But it's going to be...
And it's in person, right? Like it's not a virtual. Like this is in person.
Yeah, this is going to be real body.
Nice.
So if you want to come say, hey, I'll probably have a bag full of stuff to give away. So if you find me in the hallway, just say, hey, I'm sure I've got something for you. But yeah, it's I'm really looking forward to it because there haven't been that many opportunities to get together in person with people. That being said, privately, Ryan and I were both in Seattle last week, and I did get to see him in person, which was always nice. And yes. As a result, I got sick. So very good. It's really perfect.
That is not related to me, though. You kind of implied that was my fault. So I just want to make it clear.
Yes. No,
I stayed healthy.
I probably did that. No,
time.
I got sick independent of Ryan, but while I was in his presence, I suppose.
Thank you for clarifying.
But there were like 20 other people there. So, and I don't think I was sick like a cold. I think that the Seattle allergy season my body didn't like that very much. And so like everything here just got fully congested. And now we're in a place where it all drained into my lungs, which is right where you want it. And so I'm sure at some point during this broadcast today, I'm going to be coughing. And so I'll do my best to hit the mute button and prevent you guys from hearing all of that. So Data Driven Skills says, you're the keynote at Project Voice X. Yes, sir, I am. Should be super cool. And I'm looking forward to it. Being on a stage in front of people is one of my favorite things. And I'm looking forward to that for sure. Yeah, they did add a Friday, and it will be all virtual sessions that I believe are free. So there's a lot of good content, even if you can't go and be there in person. But if you can, highly recommend it. All right. No questions yet. Here we go. Steve Nelson is talking about the Echo Flex. Just in case you guys haven't seen one of these, this is the Echo Flex. So let me cover my face. That always helps. It's just this little guy. He's not very big, plugs right into the wall, and has a USB port on the bottom. So you can just plug it in, like charge your phone or whatever. But they also make a bunch of cool accessories. And so one of the accessories I have for the Echo Flex is the motion sensor. And so you can plug this in, you can set it up to routine. So when it recognizes motion, you have to turn lights on or say, hey, get out of my swamp, or, whatever.
And they're back in stock. I'm picking one up right this second.
Oh yeah, they're fun.
I've been trying to get a hold of these, and they were hard to get for a little while.
It's great for bathrooms too, because it sits up on the outlet rather than on the countertop.
I might just get a couple of these. Sorry, I'm shopping right now on Amazon.com.
No, it's perfect.
I wanted to get it before all you guys swoop in and get them all. So
it's very customer centric, Ryan. I like it.
Yeah, thanks. Yes.
I would also recommend, if you can, buy one of those or two of them or whatever. I think they're only what, 15 or 20 bucks.
Yeah, they're 25 now.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
They will probably be cheaper closer to the holidays, I would bet. But buy one of each of the accessories too. I think there's a clock, there's a night light, and there's a motion sensor. They're fun to play with. I think they're only like 10 bucks each, the accessories.
Cool.
Okay. So Data Driven Skill says his book is coming out next month. That's super cool. I have aspirations to write a book, but I'll never get around to it. Abuma1 says, I spoke at my second post-COVID in-person conference last week. I even did a session on developing for Alexa. It was so good to talk to faces rather than a screen. Can't agree more with that.
Where was it? I'm curious learn more about where you were speaking.
Abuma, where were you? W. Georgia wants to know how you get access to your Alexa-hosted DynamoDB. Each time he tries to click on a row, it says he doesn't have access. Well, I can tell you how it's supposed to work, which is when you're in the dev console, if you go to the code tab, there's a bunch of buttons along the top that are for your S3 bucket and for your Dynamo and for all the other services, CloudWatch. And you should be able to click on that and get in. The key is you really have to go that route because you don't have unique username and password for that stuff. And so if you're trying to go to that thing, but you're logged in as like your own AWS account, that might be why it thinks you don't have permission. So you really need to go directly to the dev console, go to the code tab, click on the specific S3 button, and that should do it. And Laldi Lab says you're right. You don't have direct access to the database. It's under a special user account, so you might actually only have programmatic access to it. I hadn't considered that. I actually haven't used the Alexa-hosted Dynamo before.
I've been able to go in there and view the data. I don't know if I've tried updating, but I definitely deleted data. Like I went in there and was able to play with it. Now there are weird things if you also have a full AWS account that you're logged in somewhere else. I end up using like two completely different browsers, like Chrome for Alexa and Safari for working with AWS, just because weird session things happen constantly and you get booted out. But you should have access through clicking, like exactly how Jeff described. You should have access to the data.
He's saying he's trying to click on the rows, and that may be where the limitation is clicking on the rows. I don't know if that is a view operation or an edit operation, but you may not have edit operations, but you should be able to view the data, I would think.
I might try to do that really quick.
In the meantime, Laldi Labs, I saw your question in Slack, and you said that you opened a support ticket, and that is the #1 recommendation for this. What this sounds like to me, and this is completely an assumption, you have a live skill called points of interest, and you notice that now when you use that invocation name, it launches the Pinterest website in the Amazon Silk browser on an Echo Show, which does not feel like the right behavior even slightly. But my guess is someone changed something to accommodate Pinterest in some way. And that is probably what happened. But if you open a support case, that is the right path. They will be able to escalate that. They'll push it to the right teams. Like they'll get a full investigation in all the behind the scenes systems. And honestly, if I was to run with this for you, I would end up doing the same thing. So I think this is the right process for you. But as far as what's going on, oh, God, this cough is going to be terrible. It seems weird, though, that you have a skill called points of interest, which is not the word Pinterest, and somehow that is launching the Pinterest website. Let me try it. Let's see what we get. Alexa, open points of interest.
Here is Pinterest.
Yeah, that's exactly the same behavior you're seeing. Alexa, go home. Alexa, navigate home. Thank you. Yeah, that's my guess.
Jeff, right now, traffic to home at 8099 Danbridge Way looks good. The fastest route takes about 1
Alexa,
minute via Danbridge Way.
Stop. It takes 1 minute to get to the house that I'm currently in. That's good to know. All right. So Oxygen Box is porting a skill to hosted, which he has limited experience with. And he's trying to figure out how to locate and clear out a DynamoDB associated with his skill due to the naming convention hosted uses.
I have to read that again.
A bunch of stuff is floating here. I want to make sure I don't lose this. So I don't know that we are going to. Well, W Giorgio and Oxygen Box are both asking questions about DynamoDB. I don't know that I'm going to have the answer for you today.
Because is this tied to, because if you have a bunch of skills in your account, like and then you create DynamoDB, it's basically creating GUID named tables in the back end, and you're trying to figure out which one is associated with what. Is that the problem? Because I just opened up mine and I have 16 tables and they're all GUIDs and I have no idea which one maps to what skill.
Right.
But I thought when you're in the skill and you click on that button, it opens to the table that is associated with that skill. But maybe that was just a happy assumption I was making, but I'm not entirely sure. That was my assumption, is it open to that particular skill.
All right. Well, we're gonna have to dig into these, W Giorgio and Trade Last. I think that this is just going to require some more investigation, or maybe I just connect you with the folks that own those features. But I don't know that I have the answer to your question here on the top of my head.
I thought for sure you had view to those tables, so.
Yeah, I did too. I feel like I've done enough exploration with that I've seen that functionality, unless it's changed. But I was under the impression that was something you could do.
I just have to figure out which DynamoDB table actually has data in it, because there's one for all my skills.
Right, that's the catch. Data Try on YouTube says, when I click on the S3 you say the Alexa SDK, but I think you mean like the developer portal. It goes to some other portal. Is it possible to go to my AWS account? No, I don't believe so. If you're clicking S3 in the dev portal, then you created an Alexa hosted skill. And so that is taking you to the Alexa account credentials that we created for you for that skill. It will not, and it logs you in and all that stuff. So it will not take you to your own personal AWS account.
So just so you know, I did duplicate this. I found a DynamoDB table that has data in it, and I clicked on edit, or I just clicked on it to open it, and it says I do not have the IAM permissions to get item.
Can you grab a screenshot of that? And then when we're done here, let's go talk to the team.
Yeah.
About what the expected behavior is for that.
Yeah. I'm going to take a screenshot, and then I'm going to, I know I've deleted successfully in the past. So, but I don't want to delete it until I take a screenshot, because then I lose my evidence of everything. All right. Got a screenshot. Let me try and delete. It definitely deleted. Okay, so it appears that it's restricted so that you can't view, which I might be able to understand the logic behind that. If this is customer data, people are storing stuff in there, just an extra layer of security, but it makes it really hard to do any sort of troubleshooting. So We'll find out if this is the intended behavior. Cool.
All right. So the next question that I saw was, I just started developing an Alexa skill. This is Daryl Porter on YouTube. And I've run into a wall when searching for good API documentation with descriptions of what the functions do and how to use them. Where can I find a good doc? Well, Daryl, my recommendation is to go to the Alexa technical documentation. They have everything there. And the easy, well, actually, I can take this URL down, huh? I'll create a new one here with this. This is a nice simple one. If you go to alexa.design/docs, this will take you right to our technical documentation. And this specifically dives into the request and response JSON reference. So it shows you every piece and aspect of what goes into that. I don't know if that's the specific part of the API that you're referring to, but on that page, there is a left-hand navigation that covers everything. And so I would expect that regardless of your question, we should have an answer for you there on the left-hand side.
Yeah, to dive into this a little bit deeper, this is something that I ran into. So my experience, and I'm not sure if this is exactly what Daryl was mentioning, but I was actually having trouble navigating the SDKs until I realized that the SDKs are really just generating JSON, and really your skill accepts JSON and Lambda or endpoints and then returns JSON. So all the SDK is doing is a bunch of convenience wrappers to create JSON. Now there's other APIs that will call back to the Alexa service to go do other things. So I'm not sure if those are what you're referring to, but those I thought were pretty well documented. The trouble I ran into were things like keeping session alive, like setting the flag in the JSON, like what API in the SDK do I call to do that? And we do have our API documentation for the SDKs. Really just tells you like what the signatures are, but not necessarily how to use them. But you have to kind of map that to the JSON documentation in the docs that Jeff just provided. But once I've realized it's really just all JSON, it kind of made it a little bit easier. He's on mute now. Yep.
I turned it off to cough. Sorry. Thank you, Ryan.
I feel vindicated from earlier today. So
well, it was mostly me trying to make you feel better, but it's okay. So
right.
Andy Muncie on LinkedIn said, "Hey guys, can developers access the Echo Show camera? And will there be an API for Alexa developers for things like Facebook Live and Instagram Live or YouTube Live that will allow linking?" Well, the bad news to the first question is no, there isn't anything available today at all. It is my deepest hope that will be possible in the future, but I have no information that would suggest one way or the other. But yes, I personally would love to be able to see that camera accessible for a number of different types of applications, making videos, being able to go live on your Echo Show. One that I've been pushing for a long time is the idea of being able to make TikToks directly on an Echo device. I think that would be super cool as well. But no, as of today, there's no programmatic access for anyone for that camera. And I think there's still a lot of thinking around security and privacy that needs to happen before we are ready to open that up. So I'm not optimistic about soon, but I am optimistic that there will be a day where that is true. But I have no timelines for that, unfortunately, at all. Elric says on YouTube, my problem exists when the skill is opened or an intent is given the location or focus of the remote. Let me try that again. When the skill is opened or an intent is given, the location or focus of the remote is on some hidden thing. Then when they move it, it finally goes to a button and then it's okay. I don't fully understand this question. The focus of the remote is on some hidden thing.
Yeah. You
got any thoughts on that one, Ryan?
Is this like an APL thing where? Oh, I have no idea. Might need a little bit more context.
Yeah, Elric, I would love to help you with this question, and I think maybe we can talk about this, but I just don't know what specifically you're asking. So I'm going to pass on that for now, and hopefully I'll see another comment from you, and we can dive into it. John on YouTube says, hey, can you tell us when Hey Disney launches? Do you have to say open Hey Disney, or do you just say Hey Disney? And I believe it's the first. The whole idea of multi-voice agent context is that you should be able to talk to any one of them independently without having to invoke the other. So my expectation is that you should just be able to say, Hey Disney. I have all my devices muted, so I can't test that right now, but I don't think it's available yet.
That was my understanding as well. And then they could hopefully hand off to each other. You say, Hey Disney, what's the weather?
Right.
Hand off to
they should be able to
Alexa
recognize who can serve the best answer. Let's see. Laldi Labs was talking about their points of interest skill. And if you do a one-shot utterance, like ask points of interest for help, that works. So Laldi, what I might try is, I know we tried open points of interest. What I might try is one of the other common starter words. Say something like play or begin or something other than the word open, and see if that doesn't also solve it. It could be that they're just hijacking the word open, in which case we can talk with them about how to prevent that in the future. But it seems weird to hijack anything for the needs of opening a browser. Yeah, I'm not sure on that one. We will be talking to some folks to figure that out. But it is a weird one, and hopefully your contact us request will ultimately get to the bottom of all this. Matthew Harmon always checks the IAM policy to make sure that the user can access that DynamoDB. It's easy to forget that. For the Alexa hosted DynamoDB, though, you don't actually create or configure any of that stuff. So that gets a little tricky. But
all the IAM roles are created on your behalf. You don't even have access to IAM console to edit them. I've tried.
Right. Well, you don't even get the credentials, right? Like, you don't have a user that you log into. They just log you in when you click on the button. All right. And Laldi also says you can't use it the Alexa hosted the same way you would use a DB in your AWS account. You only get one record per user in the schema. Agreed. It really just meant for like simple user management data. Anything beyond that gets a little complex for the self-hosted stuff. Or
it's like a giant session blob is kind of how I think of it.
Yeah, you just store like giant JSON blocks. Let's see. How can I find document? This is from S. Ray Seng on Twitch. How can I find documentation on how to customize the text of the skill store description? Is it even customizable, or just plain text line breaks is possible at this time for the store distribution description? Yes, I believe it is only plain text line breaks. I don't believe that there's any way to change colors or fonts or boldness or insert images or any of that kind of stuff. At least I'm not aware of anything. Now, I haven't actually published a skill in a few months, so things do change from time to time, but I'm not aware of any situation in which you can add that kind of additional content to your description. Excuse me. Where can I get an Alexa t-shirt from? We don't have any of these in London. I also love these streams. Keep up the great work, Amazonians. Well, thank you, Luke, on Facebook. Ryan's fancy t-shirt is actually one that I had made, and you guys continue to add fuel to the fire that we need to open an Alexa swag store where you guys can get cool t-shirts and stickers and all sorts of stuff. It is in my plans. I have a document that I've started writing that kind of outlines what we would do and what kind of products we would offer and how we'd make them available, but we have not pulled the trigger on that yet. That being said, we started staffing up our team. We had some losses over the last year and a half, and so we're really getting back to a place where a lot of our marketing organization can help with a lot of this stuff. And so it is my hope over the next 6 months or so that does come into play. So I'm not making promises. I always want to be really clear on that, but that is my hope, is that we can get this thing rolling.
I would love to see it.
Yeah.
My,
well, it would also be
my
cool
kids,
for us.
Yeah, my kids really want Alexa t-shirts. So
Yeah. Well, and it's
I'll
cool
deck
for
out
us.
my whole
It's
family.
like we could give a t-shirt away, right? Like we could generate custom coupon codes in the store and say, hey, here's your custom code. Go order one for yourself. Lots of cool stuff like that we could do. Okay, Testing Lab 123 on Twitch says, a member of our team is having an issue testing our Alexa skill in the console. When they start the experience, it says, I'm sorry, but I can only show the language associated with your account. If you'd like to switch languages, go to Settings in the Alexa app, select your device, and then select Language. Our skill is set to NUS, and their account is also NUS, so not sure what else to test. Interesting. I haven't seen that specific error message before.
Yeah.
That's like that's where I want to start, is if I search that, what do I see? But the fact that you say they're both NUS, without me confirming that, suggests that that should not be an issue. What could I even think to explore there? Testing Lab 123, the other question I'd ask here is, are other accounts having the same issue, or is it just this one person? Based on your question, a member of our team is having an issue. It sounds like maybe only that individual is. Man. Yeah, I would verify that they are using the account you think they're using, and they're not logged in as someone else or somehow something else. It feels to me like this error is probably, I'm being honest with you, and that somehow the account they're using doesn't match the skill itself. And if you've only published in the NUS, or at least created in the NUS, then it feels like it's more likely the user's account. That's about the best guess I have for you there. I don't know that I have a better answer.
I'm stuck.
Gavin Watson mentions that we used to give t-shirts away to developers as a perk for building skills, and we don't do that anymore. That is correct. We do not currently give t-shirts away for free skills. I wish we did, but yeah, we definitely used to do that for sure. Elric says, yes, I want to set the focus on a button if I can. It is hidden at the start, and you have to hit it all over the place and break it out to a button. Elric, I don't know still specifically. A couple of people asked if you're using a Fire TV remote, and that maybe that's what you're thinking. And so, like, if I was using Alexa on a Fire TV and I had an APL interface and there was a button, you want to set focus on the button when it appears. Yeah, I'm going to ask for more context here. I feel like you're giving me a lot to consider, but not enough to make a clear approach at. Let's talk about what device you're using. Are you talking about APL? And then you've built a custom interface where a button is hidden at the beginning, and then some action happens, and that makes the button visible, and you want it to be focused, I guess, so that when they click on the remote, it just automatically hits that button without having them like have to navigate. That's the feeling I'm getting here. I don't feel right about it, but that's the feeling I'm getting from your description. Brian Tarbox says, I'm about to launch the Spanish version of my Premier League skill. Any suggestions on how to get the word out? Perhaps have the English version suggest the Spanish version. Yes, Brian, that is one thing I can't recommend enough, is to let people know that there is other languages of your skill available. So if they're using the English one, you could even have a quick Spanish statement, right? That says something about now available in Espanol. I think that would be a useful thing. Be careful there, though. They are cautious about allowing you to promote other skills because that plays more like advertising, which is currently against the rules. So you don't want to be advertising things, but if you're letting a user know, hey, by the way, the skill's also offered in Spanish if you would like that, might be something to consider. Okay, yeah, that would be one good place to do that. I think also in the descriptions of the skills would be another place that I would mention that. Just in my description box, I would have something like also available in Spanish, and in the Spanish one, I would have also available in English. Maybe in the appropriate languages, so that a Spanish speaker will see it and be like, "Oh, cool, there's Spanish available here."
Mm-hmm.
All right. Can I store some preference values in Alexa skills, which I read back every time my skill is invoked? So basically, it would be the same, like storing token while account linking, but instead I would like to save some data manually from the app. Settings. So this is Rahul on LinkedIn. Yes and no. Well, absolutely yes, but the approach you take could vary. If you're using an Alexa hosted skill, you can save settings and data about your user, but you basically get one database row. And so as Ryan mentioned earlier, if you want to save a whole bunch of information about a user, there's two approaches. One is to create a bunch of columns. The other is to just have a blob column and throw a bunch of JSON in there that you read later. So yes, you could save a whole bunch of data with a user that way. Another option, if you need something that is multi-row, so an example of this might be keeping track of every time the user logs into your skill or uses your skill. If you need a row for every entry for a specific user, that gets a little more complex. Now you're either going to want to use the AWS APIs to talk directly to your own DynamoDB tables, or you can use any other database that you may imagine. So I'm talking about Dynamo, but there's lots of databases available on AWS. There's also a number of services available outside of AWS. So any database service you could use there just by calling an API, and then you could save that data, use the unique ID of the user as your primary key, and then you can easily bounce back and forth and get that information. And if you look back through a bunch of the history of development that I've done, I've used a service called Airtable, and I do something exactly like that using Airtable. So there's no limit to the capabilities, but the approach might vary depending on where you want that data to be stored.
Yeah, the Alexa hosted gives you kind of basic entry into it, so you can store name value pairs super easily. You can store some simple preferences, and then APIs let you do whatever you need to do. But then you're going to be running your own AWS account or finding. I've even seen Google. Oh my gosh, my brain just froze. Google Sheets being used as a database. So.
Yep, Google Sheets is actually my first foray into external data sources after Dynamo. And when I compared Google Sheets to Airtable, they're actually very similar in many ways. But the difference is Google Sheets doesn't let you name your columns in code. So in the API, I have to say, put this value in column 2 or column 4, or like it as an array notation. Which also meant that when I wanted to retrieve values, I had to keep a comment in my code to be like, array spot 4 is their last name. Array spot 7 is their email address. Like I had to keep a list for myself because I couldn't remember and I was constantly referring back. Airtable allows you to completely navigate that tree. And so you can just say user.first name, user.last name, and it lets you use whatever the column names happen to be. That was a huge moment for me when I switched from Google Sheets because, gosh, that was painful before. Brian Tarbox says, he gives it 100 plus. Instead of a +1, he's doing +100 for Alexa swag. That's good to know. You just raised our tally by 100. Data-driven skills says it's very easy to set up the IAM and DynamoDB in AWS, so you can own the security and settings and interact with a full DB instead of the partial you get in hosted skills. And while I will 100% agree with that, if you like the control and the power of what you get with full Dynamo on AWS, go for it. But the hosted version, the limited version, if you can live there, it's free. And you don't have any risk of incurring costs or anything like that. So that is something to weigh. There is the possibility if you overuse your database, if you have a lot of data ingress, whatever, all of that stuff could potentially cost you a few pennies or nickels. Dynamo is not very expensive. But there is the possibility of cost. And so if you're trying to avoid all cost, Alexa hosted might be for you. Luke says, let's connect offline. I think Luke was the one asking about swag earlier. Yeah, the Alexa t-shirt. Yeah, Luke, hit me up. One of the places that I would recommend hitting me up, any of you, I have two specifically. The first is somewhere in here. Do I not? Yeah, I do. We have a Slack community. So you can go to alexa.design/Slack. You can find me and Ryan there, but reach out. You can jump into that community. There's well over 1,500 people there at this time, and developers and designers and all sorts of people that are thinking about building for Alexa. So jump in there, find me, reach out. I'd be happy to chat about whatever. But also, here's my email address. If you want to shoot me an email, that's fine too. My email address is like a waterfall though. So much like salmon trying to climb their way back upstream, I may or may not pluck your salmon out of the water like a bear. It may just continue on through the waterfall and I may not see it. So you can send me an email, but I don't always make promises because it is a ton of email to keep up with. Slack and like my Twitter DMs and stuff, I keep up with those pretty regularly. The volume is far lower. So whatever works for you, I'm open to it. But ultimately, let's talk. Okay. Data-driven skills also points out that if you're trying to meet GDPR requirements, that storing PII in the appropriate country by locale is also some power you get by using your own AWS account. That is not something that Hosted will give you. All right.
Mm-hmm. My preference is just not, if you can avoid it at all costs, don't store PII at all.
Right.
But that doesn't work all the time. But I avoid it like as much as I can.
Yes. It's funny how we try to avoid saying things like we avoid it like the plague now, because we've.
I know you caught that, huh? Yeah. Yeah.
Try not to say that because we did our best to avoid a plague and still did not succeed.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. Data Try says I have an Echo Show 5, which is the little video guy. This one here behind me. Do I need an Echo Flex also? Not at all. If you have any Echo device at all that supports voice interactions, they all support voice interactions the same way. So as far as testing goes, you should be pretty comfortable with just one device for voice testing. Where it starts to get a little more complex is with all the screen sizes. And you can see some of that behind me, right? I have this guy way over here. I have the Echo Show 5. This is the Echo Show 10. I have the original Echo way down there, Echo Show. They all have different screen sizes. And so sometimes I like to have a lab that allows me to test on different screen sizes. But a lot of that capability is built into the dev console too. So it's not necessary, but it gives you that boost of confidence to see it on a real production device for sure. But no, you do not need an Echo Flex, but I think they're kind of a cool device.
Yeah, I just plan on automating my home a little bit more, which is why I got very excited when I saw them.
Yeah, motion sensors unlock a lot of interesting capabilities. I don't know if I've talked with you about this, Ryan, but I have, I know I've talked to you about having children, but I have 2 kids, and I've had this capability enabled in my house since they were probably like 9 and 5, maybe even younger. They're now 17 and 13. But I put a motion activated light switch in their bathroom because inevitably they would get up in the middle of the night, they'd go get some water, they'd turn on the light, and the light shines right down the hallway into my bedroom. And so I'd have to get back up and go turn the light off every time. So I put in a motion sensor light switch. It stays on for 5 minutes. The light switch I bought is a Lutron. It can do 1 minute, 5 minutes, or 10 minutes, I think. You can set it as you're turning it on. And I just set it to the default of 5 minutes. And so it's great because they go in there, they do their stuff, and then they leave. And then the lights turn off within a couple of minutes. The downside is that when they take a shower in there with a shower curtain, the light switch can't see them. And so a lot of times they'll have to like wave their hand out the shower curtain once in a while to get the light to turn on. So I do feel a little bit bad about that, but not as much as
that's their own doing for not turning off the lights. So
right. They earned it. That 5-year-old needs to pay the price.
Exactly.
Let's see. Nico Azzarello wants to know on YouTube, I remember the recent Alexa Live that ISP will be available in Canada and India this fall. Is there an official release date that you can share? No, I don't have an official release date for that unless it's been published in a blog. If and when we have those kinds of things, we will lock them in, but very rarely do we commit to a future date for a variety of reasons. But I would expect that there will be noise on the day that it is turned on. but I don't know an official release date. But if they said this fall, I would expect it to be in the fall, which technically means they have until December 21st. But I would think probably sooner than that, but I don't know for sure. All right. S-Ray Sang says on Twitch, are there any plans to decrease the limits? First, I haven't even read the question yet. Anytime you ask me, are there any plans? I'm going to say, I don't know, because most of the time we don't know, but even if we do know, we wouldn't be privileged to share that information. So I'm going to read your question. We'll dig into it. But generally, if you're asking us about the future, we don't know. Okay. Are there any plans to decrease the limits set in order to see the intents history? I believe current is 10 active users. Oh, I see what you're asking. So Ryan, I don't know if you know about this one. Do you have any published skills that have any amount of traffic?
No, I do not, sadly.
No, and that's okay. I don't. I have lots of published skills. None have a ton of traffic. Just because that's not my focus. I'm not spending a ton of time like trying to generate users. It's more about an experiment. How do I build a feature? Or how do I take advantage of it?
Same here. And
so what he's asking is in the intent history in your analytics tab in the dev console, there's a bunch of interesting information there, but you can't see any of it until you have 10 active users per day. Now, I would anticipate that we would not have plans to decrease this. And the reason is as that limit drops, as you get down closer to 2 or 1, you can start to identify which user is which. And that is less ideal because we don't want you to be able to identify individual users and their behaviors without getting their permission, right? So you can track a lot of this information yourself. You can see where users go and what they do. But as far as those specific analytics that you're seeing in the dev console, I think they chose 10 as a limit so that you're seeing an aggregate list and not individual behaviors. So my guess is no, we will not see a decrease. But I've been wrong before, but my guess is no. Okay, we've caught up to Elric. I'm going to cough again. Okay.
Hang in there, Jeff.
Thank you. Yes, this is APL. I have 10 buttons, and the focus is not on a button at the start. It is hidden on something. I hit the remote all different directions to break it out to a button. I want to understand how to set focus on a button at the start, like application development.
Gotcha.
Okay, this is much clearer to me now. Try open the other side and take a look at the APL, and you can see. Take a look at the APL. You can see between the help buttons and the 9 buttons at the bottom, the remote is buried on a hidden. I think by remote he means the selected area, the thing that is currently highlighted. Okay, so. The real question is, how do I dynamically set the focus on an item? And my guess is this may not have been anticipated. I don't know that I'm right, but more often than not, when we think about APL specifically, we're thinking about a touchscreen interface. And I do personally wonder if they've given consideration to things like focus, which really only matter on a Fire TV device.
I found a clear focus.
It seems to me that should be something they are aware of. I mean, the fact that they ported APL to the Fire TV devices means that they should have thought this through.
There is a set focus command I'm looking at in the APL reference.
Is it a function that you apply to a control?
I haven't gotten that far. Here, I'll send this and you can pass this along. I've not digested this. So I don't know if this is the answer or not, but it looks very promising.
All right, so I am Elric. I'm posting a message in the chat. It should come through on the YouTube channel as well as on Twitch and other places for those of you that are watching. But it does look like there's a set focus command. Now, that being fair, Ryan and I haven't actually tried this to make sure that that this is doing exactly what you're doing. But this seems like if I was creating an API with a set of functions, I would have one called set focus that is a function that attaches to a control that I can call set focus on, and it sets the focus on a specific button or text box or whatever. So that would be my assumption that that is what that does. But let me know if that is something you've already tried and maybe it didn't work. It looks like Facebook does not like me posting that link. So Facebook folks, sorry, you did not get that. But it looks like it did go through to YouTube.
It's just the APL documentation from the tech docs.
Perfect. Data Try on YouTube also wants to know how to become an AWS certified developer. So I don't know the URL off the top of my head, but that is on the AWS website. They provide a whole bunch of information, and there are a variety of certifications for different technologies. So we specifically don't have an AWS certification anymore. There used to be an Alexa certification, but that has been deprecated. So mine doesn't expire for another year, though. So I'm still technically an Alexa certified developer, but that is not an available test anymore. So AWS certified developer is something you should be able to find on the AWS website, though.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different types. There's not really one called developer. There is AWS Solution Architect, Certified Solution Architect, the associate, and then there's also DevOps, I believe. There's two different associate levels. Both are really good. I recommend them a lot. They really help you actually understand and navigate the 200,000 different services that AWS has now, and which one to use and which use case and best practices and things like that. So if you really want to get into AWS, those certifications are really good. Then you can go for the professional ones, which are ridiculously hard, but start with the associates. I think they're well worth your time. I don't agree with all certification exams. I've taken many that are just kind of like, what's the fifth menu item down from the left? And it's like, that is useless. But these are actually pretty good.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I feel like certification exams in general have some value. I think people put a lot more value on them sometimes for employability or for raises and things than maybe they should.
There is a developer one. I'm sorry, I just looked it up. There is a developer one. I
thought that there
might. DevOps is the DevOps is the professional one. Whew,
got it.
Sorry, I stand corrected.
No, that's good. We all did some learning today. I like that. All right, that's enough about certification. But I think that it is useful and interesting. But I always recommend to anyone that's hoping to pin a promotion or a new job on just getting a certification, that probably is not the thing that's going to tip the scales for you. But I do think it's a good idea, and it certainly carries some weight in the industry. I think this cloud stuff is going to stick around, and so it's probably worthwhile to prove your knowledge if you can. Lolly Lab said, did I hear you say you can have multiple columns in the DynamoDB table in an Alexa hosted skill? If I did say that, I was lying. That is not true. For Alexa hosted, you can create one row per user, and that is it. That is the entirety of what you can do. If you want to create multiple columns or multiple rows in a DynamoDB table, you have to use an AWS instance, not an Alexa hosted instance. And that is why I tend to lean away from DynamoDB for those specific things, because as you guys have seen with a lot of the development I do, I have tons and tons of data and aggregation that I want to know about a user and the behaviors and actions. Like, I want to record the history of what's happened inside my skill. And that requires a lot more than just one row. W. Giorgio says his DynamoDB cost last month was $5, and now he's completely broke. Sorry to hear that.
I get it.
Laldi Labs agrees. Yeah, it's very, very cheap. Even if you can't do it all in the Alexa hosted table, DynamoDB is a great way to go. Data-Driven Skills was talking about their book, and if there's a link for it, you can go to datadrivenskills.com. There's a photo and a link for you guys if you want to check that out. Brian Tarbox wants to know if there's any published percentage of Echo devices out there that have a screen. I'm seeing about 20% of my invocations are on screens. I don't believe that we've published any information about that. I'm actually in the process right now of pulling all of that data together. One of the awesome parts of my job is that I get to give a State of the Union kind of talk at reInvent every year to talk about those kinds of numbers. I have not been in a position to talk about screened versus non-screened devices in the past, but I ask every year, can I talk about that? Can we get those numbers? So if I can get that, you'll see it in my State of the Union at reInvent. You don't have to go to reInvent, but the talks will be available online too. But if I can get those numbers for you, I will make sure that they are part of that presentation. But at a minimum, we'll talk about how many devices are out there, how many developers are out there, how many skills have been published. If we can talk about user traffic, I push much, much more than our team will necessarily allow me to talk about. But I'm trying to get all those answers for all of us. Let's see. Rahul on LinkedIn says, is there a way I can connect Alexa to other smart devices who don't support Alexa yet? Connect it to the same peer network and send some broadcasts, like send Android TV a Play Pros broadcast. Yes, you could totally do this, Rahul. So Alexa also allows you to kind of aggregate your smart home devices together, and then you can compose all sorts of what we call routines to allow that to happen. So as an example, I have these lights here behind me, and I can say something like, Alexa, turn off Office. That'll work. Yeah, there we go. And so the lights behind me just went off. But then if I say, Alexa, start the Office nonsense, they all come back on. So I am controlling smart home devices in my house using my Alexa device. Now, the one question that you may have is, okay, cool, but how do I do that inside a skill? That's a whole other can of worms that is not easily unpacked. You could control your own individual devices from a skill. And I have an example of this that I did in the past where I used to have a lamp sitting behind me and it had a LifeX LED bulb in it. I figured out the API calls that I needed to make to be able to talk to that bulb directly. And then I built those API calls directly into a skill that I had. So as someone talked to the skill, they could change my light bulb, but only my light bulb, not theirs in any way. This is actually a feature that is on my list of things that I have requested. Again, I have a long, long list. But one of the things that I'd really like is for a user to be able to designate that they have a specific light bulb that they want used for skills, like a default light bulb. And then we as developers can just say, set their bulb to red, or turn it on, or make it blink, or do whatever. And that would allow us to send commands. And if they've selected a default bulb, or even selected a very specific bulb, we could then send commands to it without having any knowledge about it at all, right? It goes through the Alexa infrastructure and talks to the bulb. So that's a thing I would love to see, but doesn't exist today. But if you just want to use your Alexa device to talk with your smart home devices, you can do that in a skill. You can do that through routines. All of that works very well. It's when you want a skill to control someone else's device that it starts to get really messy. So Elric is back with another follow-up question. What are the rules, though, for that remote? Then what is it starting on if I knew I could change things? I don't know the answer as to what the default focus is. It feels like it would be whatever the first control is, but the default focus could also be nothing. And so once you choose to bump the remote in one direction, it starts going through an array of controls. This is how I think about most development anyway. So like even a browser, right? When you're in a browser, nothing has focus except for maybe body.
Yeah, so I was gonna say like the most parent control or document.
Yeah. But even that's not true. Like if I'm on a browser page,
It's true.
and I hit tab, which jumps the focus on controls, I don't think I end up on the first text box the first time I hit tab. I think it goes to the page, then it goes to the tab. I'd have to play with that. That's not one of those things you like catalog in your head. But I feel like your first bump probably says, oh my gosh, I have to have focus. And then the second one is like, oh, okay, what's the focus that makes sense based on the current location of the cursor or whatever? This is another great question for the APL group in our Slack. So I mentioned the Slack earlier, but if you jump into our Slack, wherever that link is, this one, alexa.design/Slack, you guys are noticing a pattern. You can pretty much try most words. Alexa.design/something will take you somewhere. But that will take you to Slack, and we have an entire room there, an entire channel called APL that is for just this kind of stuff, and I would bet you'll find a bunch of APL experts that could answer your question as well. All right, we are getting close to time and close to the end of questions. 3D Polywraith wants to know, what is the easiest way to hook Alexa voice commands up to IoT Core?
So I've done this with my chicken coop. So IoT Core is a whole suite of capabilities. So what I was using was basically the MQTT protocol to be able to send messages back and forth. And so from my skill, I was able to call IoT APIs through the AWS SDK that would then publish messages to be sent out. And I could do things like turn on different features in my chicken coop and other things like that, silly things. But that's what I was, so you're going to have your own AWS account, and then you have to figure out the permissions. You have to make sure that you are giving if you're doing a hosted skill, that hosted user has access to be able to access your AWS account, but you should be able to do this pretty easily. What you're not able to do, at least I couldn't figure it out, and if other people have figured it out, awesome, is have publish messages from my coop trigger skill things, which you can't do. The only thing that can trigger your skill is the Alexa service. But you certainly can push messages to IoT to do things. And then to round that out, what I was doing was also publishing. So I was publishing messages back that I was saving into a database that then I could go retrieve from my skill. So I could say, what was the last temperature reading? It would go fetch out of the database. Again, I built all that infrastructure in my own AWS account. IoT Core is pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. All right, with that, I think we are close to time and out of questions. But this has been another jam-packed session. I know that, Elric, you said you tried talking to the folks in the APL channel already. I don't remember seeing your question before, so my apologies. But I'll jump back in there and see if I can get some people to respond to you on that. Yeah, I think that's it for today. We will be back again next week. So write your questions down as you think of them. Certainly, I always recommend going to Slack first, and then hopefully we can help navigate some things if that doesn't work out. But your two options that you should always go to if you're stuck and you don't want to wait for a Tuesday. First, Slack. Second, contact us. And that contact us form is always incredibly helpful. They'll open a ticket for you. They'll follow up with things. That's their job. So I can't recommend them enough. But with that, Ryan, you got anything else before we sign off?
No, this was fun. I appreciate everyone helping in the comments too. That's awesome.
Yeah, always beneficial. So thank you all. We will see you all again very soon, and have a great rest of your week.